Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you all. So today we're coming back to Swordsoul Tenyi's for the first time this season since the beginning, but of course this is far from the first time that we have covered the deck here on the channel. I think I've got, if not over, close to 40 videos, I think, total covering Swordsoul Tenyi. I remember noticing that when I was looking at playlists the other day. In any case, we definitely have more than our fair share of experience with the deck, and honestly, with maybe not this exact build, but if not this exact build, very close to for quite some time now. This is one of those decks that doesn't really change too much, and in that way, it's what I like to call a solved deck. And what I mean by solved is, well, you know, more or less what I just said. The deck doesn't change too much, and the reason it hasn't changed is because that we've already more or less found the optimal version of it. Quite a little while ago, honestly, when Halki Fibrex got banned, this is pretty much more or less the first iteration we came to, and this even isn't too different from Halk builds, of course, minus Halk and Auroradon, as well as a few other cards, notably Heavenly Dragon Circle replacing Vessel of the Dragon Cycle for an additional worm searching / support. Otherwise, honestly, this deck has more or less remained the same, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Some people might say oh, it means the deck is stagnant, it means the deck isn't good anymore, because it can't make any use of new support, but I definitely would disagree with that notion. I think this deck has honestly been tier 1 probably the entire time it's been out, if not tier 1, upper tier 2. We're definitely finding it here in tier 1 though, now that the Flandreese deck no longer has the barrier statue. Before we keep talking about Swordsoul Tenyi, real quick, I just want to make sure to remind everyone that we did launch the Patreon very recently, a couple weeks ago now actually, so feel free to check it out, linked in the description below. If you are looking for some more daily Master Duel content, in addition to what comes out here on the YouTube, feel free to give that link a peek, because I do produce more daily Master Duel content over there on the Patreon. It's just $5 a month, which is just the price of a booster pack. It's definitely a lot more value than a pack full of filler. Anyway, though, Swordsoul Tenyi, this iteration, I think I've been using this exact build since, at the very least, Season 10, I believe, so going on 3 months now, with, I think, honestly, this exact 40 cards. I remember the Swordsoul Sacred Summit was the latest addition to the deck, but, I don't know, I think beyond that, there's not really too much else to do. You could include some more tech against the meta if you wanted to. I'm not talking about things Invader of Darkness, mind you, but if you really wanted to play a Cosmic Cyclone or a Twin Twister, or I was honestly thinking more Joel and Lockbird. Joel and Lockbird being good against Runic, of course, is the deck I'm talking about, teching against it, but Joel and Lockbird also very, very good against Baronne de Fluer, among a whole swath of other decks out there. This deck is actually not one of those. Joel and Lockbird actually not very effective against Swordsoul Tenyi, because this deck honestly doesn't typically do much searching. Sometimes you have to start your combo with Emergence, and that's the one time where Joel and Lockbird is actually good against us. Otherwise, the only searching you do for your combos with Chi Xiao, really. Well, I mean, sometimes you Chi Xiao for the Emergence for the Protos, but even then, by that point, you've already Chi Xiao'd plus Baronne, so Joel and Lock doesn't stop you from doing the things that really matter, like the Chi Xiao plus Baronne. So, and that is honestly still going to be the major game plan here, is to run those two monsters out on turn 1 with a Protos here, ideally. Protos still MVP of this format, especially when it comes to facing Baronne de Fluer, because then you can just declare Dark, and they pretty much can't do anything. There are the situations where they're able to bring out Despian Kratos and Despian Proskinian, but I've personally never had those dropped on me. It's a pretty rare scenario. I've never done it as a Despian player either. Actually normal summon a Despian monster and then use Super Poly to get 2 of my opponent's monsters for the Proskinian. That is something to watch out for, but for the most part, you can just use Protos. This is an easy win button against Baronne de Fluer, which might be part of the reason why Swordsoul Tenyi has kept up and is the other tier 1 deck, but honestly, it's just a solid deck overall, and it has been this entire time. Yeah, I don't know, sometimes, I don't know, this deck in particular, but I kind of struggle with trying to figure out what else to say in these deck intros. Is there really more else to say about Swordsoul Tenyi? We're summoning Mo Ye, we're making Chi Xiao, we're summoning Baronne, life is good. So, why don't we just go ahead and break down this list card by card, and then we'll take a look at some gameplay. We're playing 1 Effect Veiler, 2 Tenyi Spirit Adhara, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Tenyi Spirit Shthana, 3 Swordsoul of Mo Ye, 2 Swordsoul of Taia, 2 Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous, 2 Swordsoul Strategist Longyuan, 2 Tenyi Spirit Vishuda, 3 Tenyi Spirit Ashuna, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Archnemesis Protos, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 3 Swordsoul Emergence, 1 Swordsoul Sacred Summit, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Exterminator, 2 Heavenly Dragon Circle, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 1 Swordsoul Blackout. That's going to round out the main deck there. Extra deck will have 1 Yazi, Evil of the Zing, 2 Baxia, Brightness of the Zing, 1 Draco, Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Adamancipator, Risen Dragite, 2 Swordsoul Grandmaster Chi Xiao, 1 Chao Fang, Phantom of the Zing, 1 Baronne de Fluer, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Chen Ying, 1 Swordsoul Sinister Sovereign, Chi Xing Longyuan, that's it. I'm pretty sure anyway, that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, 3 Monk of the Tenyi, and then finally 1 Shaman of the Tenyi, and that is going to round out the extra deck there. So now that we've covered the bases, let's go and take a look at some games. So our first duel here is going to be against a Runic Sky Striker. So this is actually the first time I've played against this particular variant of Runics. And I've heard a lot of mixed things. Like, some people say this variant is great, other people say it's terrible. I suspect, as usual, the truth lies kind of somewhere in the middle. But in any case here, I'm going to start off going first, and I'm actually going to special summon this Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. I don't have any specific plans with it in mind, but in my opinion, there's not really any reason not to have it on the board. You could make an argument that I want to discard it more than this Mo Ye for the what can't I think of the one that makes Baron? Wow, the Longyuan, of course. But honestly, I'm really just looking to make sure that I have at least something on board in case my Mo Ye gets negated, so that we can, I don't know, it's not going to be much, but then we can at least go into a Monk and potentially set up an Adhara, but as you can see, our play was not really stopped there, so we were able to just go into the pretty standard Chi Xiao plus Baron, and then at the end of it, I'll throw out the Ashuna. A play like this was definitely a lot more relevant when, Hulk was a thing, but, oh, and this Taia search, by the way, as far as this goes, for some reason, I thought I was going to get, like, I thought I was going to get another, no, that was my draw, I'm sorry, that was not my search, right? Oh, God, I don't even know. Yeah, the Taia was what I drew, not what I searched. For some reason, I thought I searched it. Oh, but here we're actually able to make a little combo with it. I knew there was something with the Taia. I was just trying to remember which particular game this was. So this game in particular, because we actually opened with that Ashuna and we're able to get the Monk plus Adhara, we can then go into the Shaman of the Tenyi. That will allow us to discard the Taia and then special summon it, going for another level 8 synchro. And then I'll even throw in the Adhara in order to add the Mo Ye back to my hand. So here I'm just going to go ahead and drop should be a Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. Nope, it was a Baxia. I'm trying to remember why exactly I made Baxia here. I think I was just like misclicked, or was otherwise just not thinking, but this should have been a Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. I knew there was like some, honestly I was like waiting, because I remembered at some point that I messed up during this turn, I just couldn't remember how, but no, this should definitely be a Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, but all the same, it's not going to really matter too much here, as our opponent just goes to, summon the Hugin, activate the effect. This would have been the only monster a Draco Berserker would be able to get anyway, and of course it doesn't negate. It doesn't really matter if this is banished either. In any case, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and Chi Xiao this Hugin as soon as it comes down. I've talked about this a lot. The best way, in my opinion, to counter Runics is to make sure that you attack the Hugin. That's the way they get their Fountain, and that's how they are able to consistently set up and put back 3 cards every single turn. I don't necessarily think you need fancy specific tech. Often the stuff that you're running in your deck is going to be enough. Swordsoul especially, as you can see, the Chi Xiao is targeting the Baron here. Now they do have the Runic Freezing Curses, which is a little bit unlucky to happen to have opened that card as well. This is going to be the one that negates a monster effect, but that's okay because we do happen to also have the Baronne de Fluer as well. Now, you could make an argument that I maybe should have used the Ash Blossom on the Hugin instead, and waited to see if that got responded to, and then Chi Xiao'd. Our opponent does actually have the Widow Anchor here to negate the Baron, so I thought that after we Baron we'd be in the clear, because I was like, oh, it's Runic, they don't have another like quick way of negating a monster effect if they have already used the Freezing Curses, but because we're playing specifically against the Sky Striker variant, they do actually have a Widow Anchor here to negate the Baron. So this Hugin is going to resolve, but, and I was about to touch on earlier, it actually doesn't really matter that we didn't use the Ash Blossom in response to the Hugin, because we could just use it in response to the Runic Fountain. Now, this will only negate the Runic Fountain once, but honestly, once is really all that you need to negate it, in my opinion, because you see our opponent's going to throw out their last card in hand, their last Runic spell. They activate the Fountain, putting their 3 back, and then we're just going to negate those 3 draws. And then now they have nothing left in hand. They have to basically top deck into another Runic card in order to keep their plays going, and that won't be until their next turn. They're not going to be able to do anything on our turn because, well, obviously they don't have any, like, resources, so... Yeah, opponent's gonna go for a Zeke here, go for some more Sky Striker plays, but like at this point, our opponent is just like kind of targeting us with a watered down Sky Striker strategy. There's not really too much that's gonna threaten us at this point. Like even the Kaina to make the Chi Shao unable to attack, I think even with that, it's not gonna be hard at all for us to find lethal. We've still got the Shaman set up. Our opponent can battle over it, but like the Baxia can actually be used during our turn, so it's not like totally useless here. I can still like bring back the Taia, right? Or, yeah, bring back the Taia, maybe make another Chi Shao, search up, reveal with Mo Ye, summon another level 8 Synchro. Like, it would not have, like I said, been difficult at all to find lethal there. And yeah, it was because we're able to attack the opponent's strategy of recurring with the Runic Fountain. And again, and as I stressed, particularly in our video where we talked about tech to use against Runic, and, for the number 1 slot, I was like, Ash Blossom, Effect Veiler, Imperm. These kind of effects are still going to be the most effective thing, these tools that you're probably already using. And sure enough, we were able to not only to negate the Hugin, and even though our opponent had our responses to negating the Hugin and a response to negating that response to the Hugin, we still had the Ash Blossom. So, yeah, honestly, I think it's just a matter of like utilizing your deck's current tools in order to most effectively beat Runic, not jamming these cards that are specifically good against only Runic in the hopes that you draw them when you sometimes play that matchup, which is, it's not enough that I would consider teching against specifically that deck. So I feel like I've said that like multiple times. I see so much discourse on it. I just want to make sure that, I don't know, I feel like I just want to help everyone not water down their own decks is really my main goal here. In any case, though, that's our nice clean win against Runic, so let's go and take a look at the next game. Alright, so this one here is going to be against Baronne de Fluer, so playing against kind of the 2 more popular decks here. And we are actually taking the second turn this time. Opponent's got the Ghost Trick field, which is my personal favorite field. I feel like I need to put it on more decks. I use, of course, the Sword Soul one with Sword Souls, but anyway, opponent's going to start off by foolishing their Despian Tragedy. That is, of course, to get the Aliber and then get their plays going. I actually don't have any like responses at all in my hand, so this is a little bit awkward, but honestly, our hand's looking really good, so I'm not super duper worried about this. Like, yeah, our opponent's going to have like a Mirror Jade and a Chimera set up, but with this hand that we have here, I'm pretty sure we can play through it. Especially because we don't have to commit our normal summon. We actually have quite a few different options in our hand alone to special summon, right? So basically, I'm going to start by testing things with the Vishuda. I would like to, in a perfect world, special this Vishuda, send it for Monk, Monk F to, or not Monk F, sorry, Vishuda F while Monk is on board to bounce the Mirror Jade. That's probably not going to happen, but it will beat my opponent's Mirror Jade. I suspect they're going to use the Mirror Jade to banish the Vishuda as soon as I summon it. And then from there I can move into either the Ecclesia or the Longyuan. It's obviously going to depend on what all my opponent ends on and what the rest of my hand looks like. But again, even though I don't actually have any disruption to stop my opponent's initial play with this hand, I think it's still going to be more than enough here. I'm also looking at this Swordsoul Emergence and thinking it'd be really good if I could search Protos with this. Because if, and literally I mean this, if nothing else survives, if we can just get Protos on the board and call Dark, like, that's going to go a very long way towards winning this duel right there. So that's going to kind of be my main strategy here, is to kind of get that going. So, we draw for turn. It's Maxx, right on time Maxx. I'm going to start by specialing this Vishuda. The opponent's going to fire off their Maxx in response. Now, this is just going to have to be a scenario where I have to play through the Maxx. I'm taking the Maxx challenge, which I know I talked about, like, oh, I never do this on turn 1. Turn 2, totally different story. Because on turn 2, we actually do have a chance of, well, obviously winning on this turn, because we can actually push for lethal. I don't think it's generally worth it to take the Maxx challenge on turn 1. Like, if your deck is going to be doing more than, honestly, like 3 summons, because however good of a board you can end on, if you're giving your opponent like that many draws, they're going to be able to answer it. Like, more often than not, they're going to be able to answer it. Or if they aren't able to answer with all the cards you give them, they'll top deck, you know, the Nibiru amidst their draws and stop that. That's honestly the main thing I'm thinking about when I'm playing into the Maxi challenge. Is like, and it really is honestly only Nibiru, right? Like, well, I have the call by now. I was about to say, yeah, if they Ash Blossom, that'd be annoying. Not really anymore, because I have the call by. But like, you know, if they Ash Blossom / Veiler or whatever, that's we can still play around that. But Nibiru is going to be a lot harder to come back from. So there's the Protos. We actually managed to draw it off of our Maxi, which is nice. So we don't have to bother using the Emergence or trying to force the Emergence to search it now, which is actually looking like it wasn't really going to be super feasible anyway. As our opponents pretty handily answered all of our attempts to Synchro Summon. So I'm going to use this Emergence to get a Taia, because believe it or not, actually, you can't believe it, I pointed out earlier, I haven't normal summoned yet before this Taia. The Mo Ye came off the Ecclesia, so we were able to special the Vishuda, special the Ecclesia into the Mo Ye, special the Longyuan, and then now I'm able to go for Taia, and then now I'm going to try to start going for some plays. I'm going to start with the Baron. I want this online ASAP, like I said, because of Nibiru. But now that I've got the Baron online, I'm definitely not fearing the Nibiru nearly as much as I was before. And again, Nibiru really is the only thing that's going to really be able to stop me here. But with Protos clearing the board, like, yeah, the Mirror Jade's effect has triggered, but at this point, we're going to win the duel. Like, at this point, I'm looking beyond just, like, you know, trying to stabilize for this turn and stop my opponent from doing anything on their next turn, and now I'm just going to end the duel on this turn. Like, yeah, we even searched up the Sacred Summon, but it's not needed at all after drawing that Longyuan there. Yeah, in fact, it's pretty easy. Our opponent, it's funny because our opponent did actually have a prompt to respond after everything was cleared off the board, and I was like, oh, it's Imperm. It's got to be Imperm because, well, you know, technically it could have been Imperm and then Nibiru, so there was actually still an out they had if they had exactly both those two cards. Because then obviously they would have either negated the Baron with the Imperm, or I would have been forced to negate the Imperm with the Baron. Either way, Nibiru would have been able to clear through in exactly that scenario. But fortunately for us, our opponent did not have both. It looks like they only had the Imperm there. So we were able to get away with this win against the Tunnel. I just remember that name. I don't know why. I think that name is funny to me. But yeah, that's a nice win against Despia, playing into the Maxi challenge. So yeah, let's go and take a look at the next duel. This duel is also going to be against branded, but this one is actually against branded Thunder Dragon, so definitely a different variant there. I believe it was a 60 card variant, if not 60, close to it. Is actually kind of another 60 card deck I want to try out. I think I still have to craft, no it wasn't, it was 54 cards? 54 cards, huh, weird. I think you might as well go up to 60 at that point, but I don't know, I think I'm only a couple of Thunder Dragon fusions away from actually being able to build this deck, so I guess let me know in the comments if you're really interested in seeing me play branded Thunder Dragon. It could potentially be a good deck to pivot into moving forward, but anyway, our opponents got their Thunder Dragon Colossus set up here before dropping the branded fusion, and then I'm going to fire off the Ash Blossom. You might have noticed, actually, my opponent did activate a couple of card effects here that I was able to respond with Ash Blossom to, including the Thunder Dragon Hawk. Or no, sorry, actually I was not able to respond to the Thunder Dragon Hawk effect with the Ash Blossom, but the Thunder Dragon I was. And I've actually, like, I don't know, I've had moments where I wondered, like, do I actually Ash Blossom the Thunder Dragon? But it's like, no, you never do, I don't think. This is really only just to get the requirement for Colossus up. And honestly, the other reason I didn't want to Ash Blossom this is because, one, Thunder Dragon has other effects that are better to Ash Blossom. But two, and the main reason I didn't want to use Ash super early, even probably against another Thunder Dragon monster, other than the Thunder Dragon itself, is that Thunder Dragon is more often than not paired with Branded nowadays. In fact, when going through my last few meta-analysis and looking at all the decks submitted to Master Duel meta, you know, that have hit Diamond, I've noticed that over the past, like, month and a half or so, literally all of the Thunder Dragon decks have been Branded variants. So it's definitely not out there to assume that a branded fusion is coming down. And again, sure enough, it does, so I'm just going to negate it with the Ash Blossom there. This is also nice because I can just imperm this Colossus, and then I can do my Mo Ye play. I was going to say combo, it's not really much of a combo, but I can do my Mo Ye play here uninterrupted. So Mo Ye, of course, revealing the Blackout, and then going to just take a standard play from there, getting out the Shishao plus Baron. It's too bad, it needs Tenyi monster, and this actually would have been lethal this turn, but No such luck. It's not that big of a deal, though. We have a pretty strong hand here, aside from, of course, the standard play. We even drew another Imperm. That's a great draw. Because we have the Feather Duster on the off chance they set something. They didn't on their turn, so... oh, they had the Nibiru, that's right. Oh, wow, that was this game. So, here are fears I was kind of talking about earlier were realized, although they didn't have to have a Maxx this time. They just straight up had the Nibiru in their hands. So, it's a little rough, it's a little unlucky, but... you know, it's definitely not impossible to play through. So here, our opponent's got a Cosmic Cyclone, and I am actually going to chain the Infinite Impermanence. Might look a little pointless, but there is actually a very niche reason to do this. And I don't really care about the Nibiru. I don't care about negating this effect, but by activating the Imperm, any spell or trap that's activating this column for the rest of the turn is going to get negated. And it's very easy for an absent-minded opponent to just play a card in this zone and not think about it. I have both won and... I've won games in the past because opponents have done this. I've also lost games in the past because I've done this. So, again, this Imperm might look pointless, but it's actually not. I don't think our opponent plays into it, but still, it's worth it, honestly. Either way, I think so. Yeah, normal summoning the Thunder Dragon Egg. What is this card called? Matrix. Thunder Dragon Matrix. Going for the Vert Anaconda. Pretty obvious, you're just going to go for another Brand Diffusion here. Looks like they're sending the Vert just to straight up go into the Mirror Jade, skipping the Lubellion. And it's a little rough, you know, they're going to be able to banish the token and then attack directly. So we're going to have to peel a pretty good card off the top of our deck. It's going to have to either be Protos or Emergence in order for us to be able to still, like, honestly have a chance at all in this duel. Oh, and I'm definitely ashing the Albion effect here, so they can't follow up with a, you know, something, anything. I was going to say Guardian Chimera. I don't know if this deck really follows up with Guardian Chimera all the time, but we do actually top deck Protos, though, because we're the luckiest player in the world, so... no, but honestly, the Emergence would have done it too. We had quite a few top decks, actually. Protos, Emergence, Taia were all valid top decks. I think that's it, but that's still... how many Emergence have we used? Is it just the one? No, we haven't used any so far. So that's still 6 cards out of 32. That's not bad odds. It's... What is that? I'm so bad at math. I don't know what percent that is off the top of my head. But it's like between 20 and 25%. So, like, yeah, that might have looked like a really lucky top deck, and I don't know, it was a lucky top deck to be fair, but the odds were not impossible. Like, they were not super stacked against us to have an out to that board there. That Mirror Jade, really. Yeah, I know one of my opponent's remaining 3 cards is a Thunder Dragon Matrix, although that's probably the one they set there. I can't help but wonder what's in the rest of their hand, though, but they have 3 cards and none of them are usable. But in any case, we're able to seize our victory there, so GG's Ray. Let's go ahead and move on to the last game. And our final duel for this video is going to be, I guess, a bit of a hybrid. It's Magistus plus Exosisters. I actually played against a dedicated Magistus deck for the first time relatively recently in the Duelist Cup, this most recent one. I think actually that duel made it into a video if I recall correctly. So, and Exosisters I played against a couple of times, mostly when they were first released, but yeah, this is kind of going to be one of those matchups where, like, I'm going to have to rely on vague memories of what the deck does to really figure out how I'm going to counter them here. So Magistus, I do remember, is all about, like, equipping stuff, but I also remember they didn't do anything, like, super duper unfair, so... anyway, look at the rest of my hand here. I've got Taia, Circle, and 2 Emergence, so, like, hand definitely could be better, but it also could be worse. I'm looking to Emergence for... Probably just going to get the Longyuan here off the Emergence, and then go for the Taia banishing set Emergence. But I do actually manage to top deck the Imperm. This is actually going to be pretty important, I think, to stop this thing. If I recall correctly, this had... Yeah, so this would have stopped my Synchro effects, which actually could have been potentially a pretty big issue. I'm trying to think how I would have outed this big Synchro monster had I not top decked Imperm. I don't know, I probably would have figured something out, but anyway, with the Imperm, this is just easy mode. Although, actually, did they have a Synchro equipped? Oh no, they actually did have a Synchro equipped, so they can only stop links and fusions. Got it, okay. They had a synchro on field, but it's only Magis's monsters in the spell trap zone. Okay, so I thought when I was actually playing the duel that because they had a synchro monster in play, I wasn't going to be able to use synchro effects. So it actually didn't really matter that I had the Imperm anyway. Okay, never mind, disregard what I was about to say. They do have a Maxx C though. That's definitely going to be annoying, so if it weren't for I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, Maxx C in this scenario wouldn't stop me from trying to go for game. I don't think I had a lethal either way. I don't think that Maxx C actually affects my play here, now that I think about it. We're always going to only be able to go for one level 8 synchro this turn. So I think, yeah, I think the Draco Berserker was probably always just going to be the option anyway. I guess it's just a little bit unfortunate that our opponent's going to be able to get a couple of draws. But, you know what happens. Gonna set the Heavenly Dragon Circle just in case our opponent does have an answer to this Draco Berserker. Then I at the very least get a search out of it. In the meantime, though, I'm definitely more than willing to keep this Draco Berserker up as Disruption, as we're going to see here. Our opponent tries to activate the Magis's effect here to equip a card, but it's not going to work when that card gets banished. So I kind of can't help but wonder if our opponent didn't read the Draco Berserker, or maybe, because I've made this mistake before, where playing in Swordsoul Tenyi, where I see the Draco Berserker, I think, okay, it doesn't negate, so I should be fine with my effect, but then I realize whatever effect I'm trying to activate is contingent on that monster staying on the board. That does matter for some monsters, that Magis's effect being the case. You know, it's not going to equip, it's not going to put a Magis's in the spell trap and then the graveyard. It's not going to equip it at all because the target to equip is no longer there. I think maybe my opponent thought they could have equipped a Moon Maiden and still gotten a search, but is not the case. You just don't get the equip there. So, in either case, whatever the reason, our opponent did ultimately decide to concede, getting us the win there. GG's. Let's go ahead and move now to the outro. Alright everybody, thank you so very much for watching all the way to the end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me, not just personally, but it's actually a great way to support the channel as well. Other ways of supporting the channel, if you're interested, commenting and subscribing, great ways of doing that. Comments, of course, I'm always looking for feedback. Let me know what you think of the build. Like I said before, I think Swordsoul Tenyi is a pretty much solved deck at this point, so I don't really foresee myself making many, if any, changes to the build moving forward. But if you have any suggestions, I would definitely like to hear them. And subscribing, yep, that'll let you, of course, like I said, it's a means of supporting the channel. It'll let you know when my videos drop. That does happen every single day, so when you subscribe here on YouTube, you get some daily Master Duel content. And if you feel like getting even more daily Master Duel content, feel free to check out the Patreon there as well in the description. But that's going to be it for today. That's all the time I've got, so without further ado, this is XLex, signing out. I hope you have a fantastic day.